This presentation highlights some of the 2025 activities and accomplishments of the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District. Drafts of the 2025 Year in Review Infographic, 2025 Annual Report, and the 2025 Progress Report are provided in the March 26 Board Meeting Packet and available at www.clflwd.org. As of 2025, lake health within the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District is generally improving according to multiple metrics such as phosphorus concentration, chlorophyll A concentration, water clarity, and presence of natural shorelines. The Watershed District and numerous local partners have implemented a large portfolio of water quality improvement projects over the last several years, which are making measurable improvements to lake health. In 2025, the district continued to develop and expand its programs. Some examples include increased participation in local stewardship through the district's cost share program, high engagement rates at the district's educational classes and other outreach methods, and a high rate of compliance on active construction sites that hold a permit from the district. The district did a lot of planning in 2025 for the years to come. Now that lakes are starting to achieve water quality goals and some lakes are being delisted, the district is planning ahead for what is next. The district planned, prioritized, and sought grant funding for initiatives that will help protect the water quality improvements achieved to date and provide numerous additional benefits such as climate resiliency and wildlife habitat. Lake health has improved in recent years, in large part due to program initiatives like the permitting program and due to water quality improvement projects, most of which have been constructed within the last 10 years. The speedometer graphic on the left side of this slide illustrates the phosphorus load reductions achieved by projects implemented by the CLFLWD and its partners. The district has a handful of remaining projects planned and in progress in order to meet the goal nutrient load reduction for all 9 priority lakes. On the right side of the slide, these lakes are listed along with their trends for the 3 main water quality metrics. These include phosphorus concentration, which is a primary nutrient contributing to algae growth, and some studies suggest 1 pound of phosphorus can support up to 500 pounds of algae growth in a lake, chlorophyll A concentration, which is a measure of algae in the lake, and water clarity, measured using a Secchi disc, which helps determine how far down you can see into the lake. Most water quality trends are improving. In fall 2025, the district completed the Forest Lake Alum Treatment Project, which is anticipated to shift the declining trends we're seeing in the Forest Middle and Forest West basins. Note that it takes several years of data in order to establish a long-term trend, so these trends won't change immediately. These improving trends have been very noticeable for some lakes, like Moody Lake and Shields Lake. About 10 years ago, Moody Lake had an average summer phosphorus concentration of 155 micrograms per liter, which is almost 4 times higher than the state standard of 40 micrograms per liter. And Shields Lake had a summer average phosphorus concentration of 350 micrograms per liter, which is 6 times higher than the Shallow Lake state standard of 60 micrograms per liter. Both of these lakes are now very close to achieving their state standards and being removed from the impaired waters list. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, MPCA, and Federal Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, established criteria for determining whether a lake should be listed as impaired for nutrients, and thus provides the criteria for removing a lake from the impaired waters list. The district has worked closely with the MPCA to evaluate Bone Lake for delisting in 2024, and most recently Comfort Lake for delisting in 2026. Here is an overview of those criteria. Water quality samples are based on data taken during the Minnesota growing season, which is June through September. A lake that is a candidate for delisting must generally meet 2 types of criteria. Number 1 is showing that the phosphorus standard and either the chlorophyll A or Secchi depth clarity meet the standard based on at least 8 samples collected within at least 2 years of the most recent 10-year period. There are a number of ways to calculate averages with these data, so the MPCA considers the full 10-year average, the 1-year average during each of the most recent 2 years, and simply looking at individual samples within the most recent 2 years. Criteria number 2 is showing whether the lake has an improving trend in total phosphorus or demonstrating that there are management activities in place, projects, to provide the necessary water quality improvements to achieve improving trends. This is just a general overview of the sort of data that MPCA considers when making recommendations to the EPA for delisting. The MPCA looks at these factors holistically and considers any other notable factors that may come into play for a specific lake and its unique watershed. The CLFLWD Progress Report demonstrates progress toward these criteria for its priority lakes that are impaired or have been close to the impairment threshold. Now let's review these criteria for Comfort Lake. The Progress Report provides tables showing 8 of the summertime water quality readings for each lake. Note that some years there are more than 8 samples available, and some years there are fewer than 8 samples, depending on the ability to collect those samples in a given year. Blue boxes mean that the sample meets water quality standards. Orange boxes mean it does not. Note the abundance of blue boxes over the 10-year period shown. Comfort Lake meets criterion number 1 for delisting because seasonal averages of at least 2 years out of the 10 years meet phosphorus, chlorophyll A, and SECI standards. Additionally, the 10-year average is within the state standard. Looking at criterion number 2 for delisting, we can see that the phosphorus trend for Comfort Lake is improving. Additionally, there are several management activities in place to promote continued improving trends for all metrics. The district has implemented several water quality improvement projects in the Comfort Lake Management District over the past 10 years, in addition to significant improvements in upstream water bodies that ultimately flow to Comfort Lake. In this graph, you can see that the summertime average phosphorus concentration in Comfort Lake has been below the state standard every year for the past 10 years. The EPA releases the impaired waters list biennially, and the next list is expected to be published in April 2026. With Bone Lake being delisted in 2024 and Comfort Lake in 2026, what lakes do we expect may be delisted when the next list gets published in 2028? Of the district's 9 priority lakes, 4 currently remain on the nutrient impairment list. School Lake and Little Comfort Lake are currently meeting the minimum criteria for delisting. The district plans to complete a few additional management activities benefiting each of these lakes over the next year or so, and we anticipate both of these lakes being good candidates for delisting in the next 2 years. Moody Lake and Shields Lake were the 2 most heavily impaired lakes in the district 10 years ago. They both have come a long way in water quality improvement and technically meet the minimum criteria for delisting. However, we don't want to delist a lake prematurely, and the data are still showing more state standard exceedances than we would ideally like to see. The district completed the Moody Lake capstone projects, including multiple management activities, in 2025. Monitoring data this summer in 2026 and a reevaluation of trends will be key to determining next steps for delisting for Moody Lake. Shields Lake is unique because it is categorized as a shallow lake, meaning it has a maximum depth of 15 feet or less, with 80% or more of the lake area shallow enough to support aquatic plants, what is called the littoral zone. Shallow lakes are extra sensitive to changes in their watershed. Although the district has implemented projects that achieve the goal nutrient load reduction for Shields Lake, some recent water quality readings in Shields Lake exceed the state standard much more than we would like to see. Therefore, the district is performing some additional investigation in the Shields Lake subwatershed to determine if there is further work that can be done to ensure Shields Lake consistently meets state standards in the long term. Again, monitoring data in the upcoming 2026 season will be insightful. Moving on to another metric for lake health, shoreline health. This is another area where we've seen improvements in recent years, but there is still a ways to go before all lakes are meeting the goal. Over the last 3 years, district staff completed updated shoreline inventories for all 9 priority lakes listed here, and plans to update each inventory on a 5-year schedule. 6 of the 9 lakes are currently meeting the district's goal, which is 75% of shoreline properties having at least 75% natural cover. The district's 3 largest and most densely populated lakes are not meeting this goal. Bone Lake and Comfort Lake each require about 20 shoreline properties to restore their shorelines in order to meet this goal, whereas Forest Lake will require an estimated 450 properties to restore their shores in order to meet the goal. The district implements a comprehensive shoreline restoration program including public outreach, technical assistance, cost share incentives, and grant seeking to leverage additional outside funding for shoreline restoration projects. Turning our attention to programs, the district has made a concerted effort to expand its programming in recent years with the hiring of in-house professional staff. These next 2 slides provide some high-level highlights from the past year. but keep in mind there is a lot of activity going on in the district's programs, so we encourage you to read the annual report and the progress report for a more complete picture of the district's activities. In 2025, the district held its annual State of the Watershed event with presentations on district activities and the Watershed Champion Awards program, attended by just shy of 100 people. This event was in addition to numerous workshops, other events, direct communications, and social media messaging that the district performed over the year. Throughout 2025, the district submitted grant applications to a variety of grant programs, requesting an ambitious total of $7.9 million for projects that would span multiple years. Of that amount, the district has been awarded $3.3 million. The district managed 18 active grants for various initiatives in 2025 and will continue an ambitious grant-seeking plan in the years to come. The district implemented its permitting program to protect water resources as urban and residential development occurs. Active permit sites are required to control erosion and sediment transport, among other environmental protection requirements, and in 2025, active permit sites were, on average, 96% compliant with the regulatory requirements. In instances where a permittee was non-compliant, the district worked with the permittee to remedy the issues as soon as possible to get back into compliance. In 2025, the district continued its water monitoring program to assess the health of lakes and streams. District staff worked with the district engineer and multiple volunteers to collect water monitoring data. As mentioned earlier, the district's cost share program is getting more attention each year. In 2025, the program saw 61 site visits to interested landowners, 46 participants in the program, 670 linear feet of shoreline restored, and 1.6 acres of native plantings planted. As shown earlier, the district completed shoreline inventories on 3 lakes in 2025, and the district implemented its aquatic invasive species prevention and management program, including 6,000 watercraft inspection surveys at public launches, public outreach, AIS surveys, AIS management activities, and no new AIS introductions were observed in 2025. Finally, as we turn our attention to the district's planning efforts and what the future may hold, I wanted to briefly share some information from the Minnesota Climate Adaptation and Resilience Cost Study that was just released in March of 2026. The graphic on this slide comes from this study and illustrates cost estimates related to climate change for 3 periods in the future. In all cases, the cost of inaction or a reactive response is significantly more expensive than a proactive adaptation approach. The study found that in any case, climate change is expensive for Minnesotans. And while adapting to climate change and building resilience in our watersheds is costly, it is more costly to be reactive than to be proactive. Keeping that in mind, here are a few highlights related to watershed planning and climate resiliency. The district purchased 2 properties in 2025 with a combined total of 241 acres that will allow the district to implement water quality and habitat restoration projects in the coming years. One is the Heath Iron Enhanced Sand Filter Project, and the other is pictured to the right, the Bone Lake South property, which will entail a multifaceted water quality and habitat restoration project. The district completed a strategic plan and a 5-year program and project plan in 2025, which established priorities and helped guide implementation activities. The district began working on a shoreline resiliency action plan in 2025 with the help of Moore Engineering and funded by a local climate action grant from the Pollution Control Agency. The district drafted the Floodplain Resilience Action Plan in 2025 and has been communicating with the City of Forest Lake to refine project priorities. Staff will bring an update on this initiative to the next board meeting. The district began preparations for a rule review and rule update process to be completed in the coming years. And the district applied for 2 major grants through the Lessard Sams Outdoor Heritage Fund in 2025. Once confirmed, these grants will provide critical funding for wildlife habitat and water quality projects that will also promote watershed resiliency. On my final slide, we'll recap next steps. These reports were posted online on March 19th in order to give the board extra time to review. At the March 26th regular board meeting, the board set a deadline of April 7th for comments and requested revisions to the reports. This topic will be discussed at the April 9th regular meeting, where managers may decide which revisions to accept or adjust. Staff will revise the reports accordingly, then post in the April 23rd board packet so that the board can approve the reports at the April 23rd board meeting. Ultimately, staff will send the final annual report to the Board of Water and Soil Resources by the April 30th deadline.